Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and it looks like we have some news today. Now, Creative Assembly's financial reports have just released. You're going to hear a little bit of noise in the background, I do believe, because I do have some family over. You know, it's the Christmas holidays and so on. Christmas doesn't end here until the fricking 7th, you know, it's a fun time. But we do need to talk about this because there's a bunch of different information here and we need to get into the bottom of it. So yeah, let's talk about it. Before anything, actually, I am not a financial expert. I do have to stress that out because some people seem to think that when I do these videos, I'm a financial expert, or I claim to be. I'm not. But I always like keeping tabs on how Creative Assembly is doing and what they're actually doing. So page 1 is pretty much just like the turnover and so on. It's pretty high, 149 million, still a little bit less than the previous year, but still fairly decent, considering that at that point, it was, what, Thrones of Decay, that's the last one, and, well, Pharaoh, but Pharaoh really didn't make that much money. There is a big mention regarding the restructure, obviously no longer funding HYENAS, and a lot of people actually lost their jobs. In the first round, it was 245 people, and in the second round, it was 118 people. That's actually a little higher than I expected, totaling to 363 people, some of which were from the Total War series, by the way. A few friends of mine, unfortunately, did lose their jobs. But this is pretty interesting here. The restructuring must happen to future-proof the studio and allow them to refocus on their core franchises going forward. So that would be Total War and Alien Isolation, and I do apologize for the noise in the background. I've heard some playback, but that's all I can do. The other section here is we need to streamline, focus on what we're good at, and position ourselves as best as we can for the road ahead. To do that, we need to respond to the changing economic landscape and the challenges we're facing in the way we develop our products and bring them to the market. You mean releasing them fucking broken, right? And then fixing it later? Sorry, I don't want to be hostile here, but it's a trend that really does annoy me with CA, and I'm hoping that the future, that is never going to be a problem again. I think they've learned now that they can't do that anymore. What's interesting to note there is there was a loss after taxation, £2.1 million, which was kind of expected. Stuff just wasn't releasing. There was a lot of money that was made from Thrones of Decay. I know that for a fact. But the previous titles before that, you know, Pharaoh didn't make much money, Shadows of Change didn't make much money, even with the reshuffle. It was going to be a loss. Next year's likely going to be a bit larger, considering that Thrones of Decay did very, very well. Omens seems to be performing very, very well from what I'm hearing from my own sources. Not much in page 2, it's mostly just talking about the current climate, the rise in prices, obviously the stuff happening in the Middle East and in Ukraine, which I find really odd for a gaming company to talk about, but I guess it's linked to the whole fact of the rise in oil prices, meaning that just stuff is going to be more expensive in the UK. They did talk about the cost of living pressures for the people in the UK and Europe, some of their employees obviously like that. You know, that could be kind of negated if they paid the people at CA a proper living wage, though. Naturally, it's something that they wouldn't be doing too much lately because they're going to call for a loss, so they can't really justify that. What's pretty interesting is the whole thing about like the delays to upgraded hardware like PS5 Slim and the Nintendo Switch 2. I don't think any Total War titles or CA titles, current CA titles, run on these machines, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. This is where we're going to get into the meat and potatoes, though. So it's the whole strategic report continued for the year ended in the 31st of March, 2024. The first thing is the fact that, yes, it's confirmed that there is a coordinated effort between development in a number of CA and Sega studios. I don't know what to think too much about more Sega involvement with Creative Assembly, because clearly it hasn't gone that well so far, right? But apparently there seems to be some long-term plans. When we go into the Our People section, this is where the important stuff happens, right? They're going to be taking more employee views into consideration, which does seem quite possible, considering that Thrones of Decay was much better of a DLC. I'm not too sure how it went with Omens, but that looked like it was just a rush project in general. And they're just going to be pushing for, you know, just encouraging performance and development of talent at CA, which is always good. If they paid them a little bit more, though, they would actually stay a little bit longer. There's a lot of turnover at CA, a lot of turnover. Business relations. Our strategy prioritizes organic growth to existing clients and bringing new clients into the group. To do this, we need to develop and maintain strong client relationships. We value all of our suppliers and have a multi-year contracts with our key suppliers. So Steam, Epic, blah, 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 right? That is going to always be quite good because Total War does sell a lot. and they're likely just very happy with that. Plus, when it comes to Steam, I mean, you just have to sell a few copies and you get your £100 back. It's a really interesting thing. Steam has always been very open with working with developers, big or small. And then nothing with community environment. That's the usual stuff that they always do. With shareholder, it's pretty much just saying, you know, Sega Sammy Holdings own a lot of us. God, I wish that CA could buy themselves out. Alright, so risks and stuff, it's going to be quite a lot to talk about, right? So competitors, they mostly just talk about the fact that they're going to be more committed to Total War as a franchise, which, I mean, that's what people have been asking for a long, long time. We need historicals, we need fantasy, and sci-fi. It's really interesting in that second paragraph, though. The availability of significant financial resources has become a major competitive factor in developing and marketing software games. Some of our competitors have greater financial, technical, personnel, and other resources than we do, and are able to finance larger development and marketing budgets. So they're talking about likely stuff like Paradox. Paradox have been releasing non-stop. They're a content mill. Paradox are really, really good at throwing out DLCs constantly, right? I'd argue that this is more of a Sega issue than the Creative Assembly stuff. Yes, more funding should be put towards the games because we don't want broken launchers. The next game, likely Total War 40k, if that releases badly, is going to cause a lot of issues. And this is actually mentioned in later parts over here. It's something that I would like to see. Technical-wise, they have a lot of really good talent at CA. You have no idea how amazing some of these devs are, and being able to make something work out of something that really should not be working anymore. The tech debt is real. Licenses, this one's a really important one. Many of our products and services are based on or incorporate intellectual property owned by others. Our Total War Warhammer products include rights licensed from Games Workshop. Competition for these licenses and rights is intense, and that is true, very, very intense. If we are unable to maintain these licenses and our rights to or obtain additional licenses or rights with significant commercial value, our ability to develop successful and engaging products and services may be adversely affected, and our revenue and profitability may decline significantly. So yes, they're basically admitting Warhammer keeps the lights on. This is something that's really important to talk about, because I did mention the whole thing about Total War Star Wars, right? When that rumor leak, fake leak, I'm guessing, came out, they can't do Star Wars because Games Workshop will go, oh, okay, remove the license. They can do that. It's something that's baked into the clauses. I know that because I've spoken to devs at many Warhammer studios, the ones that do video games. They won't be able to do Star Wars because they're not gonna, Games Workshop are not going to allow a competitor to rise up and potentially take away attention from Total War 40k. They would allow it for Lord of the Rings, but that's because they would make profit from that, because people would then buy miniatures for Lord of the Rings Middle-earth Strategy Battle, and yeah, it's just how it goes. Creative Assembly are very much aware. I've spoken to devs, and they're very much aware how much they need Games Workshop, because Warhammer has made them far more money than a historical game has done. Now, I'm not saying that they should get rid of historicals. I think that a historical game needs to come soon, but it's very clear that Warhammer makes a lot of money. There's people who have FOMO when it comes to DLCs, even though that there's no limits on what key and when you can buy your key for a DLC. People want that as fast as possible, as it happens with a brand new release for the tabletop, right? Hell, today of all days, we've seen the release, well, the pre-order release of the Empire of Man for Warhammer the Old World, and the Battalion box sold out within 45 minutes. It's just how it goes. There's FOMO. I'm the same. I bought something today too. Tutelage and Guard, but I mean, it's got good rules, right? There's not really other information of note. They do mention like the whole thing about, you know, the autumn budget for the UK government, which is going to fucking shit because the UK decided to elect people who kept lying. The Trump election, which, yes, could provide some weird tax issues with the whole thing about tariffs and so on, but we have to wait and see until he takes office, obviously. But yeah, in general, a little bit of a loss, which is kind of expected. It's not that big of a loss, in all honesty. It looks pretty big, but Sega were basically just funding for a lot of stuff. If you're wondering where the 110 million went, that was Sega's money, not Creative Assembly's, because Sega Sammy brings the money in to fund for these big projects like HYENAS, which obviously went to shit. At least the game got to release, though. Wait, no, that was Concord. Oh my god, it's been a bad year for games, hasn't it? Other than that, I mean, it seems like a pretty standard financial report. I mean, the loss was expected. I don't think anyone is surprised there. The amount of employees lost is quite big. I know some people thought it was like 500 or something, but yeah, it was a fair chunk. This was a fair chunk, but not as big as like half of CA. The only thing that does worry me a little bit is the whole thing of games as a service, but I guess that could be attributed to DLC. There is mention of long-standing games, and I think that's what people actually do want. Rather than getting loads and loads of sequels, one really good game and then just adding to it, you know? I think that would make Total War feel a lot better. For Warhammer, it wasn't really going to work because they needed multiple sequels, because that's a Games Workshop thing, just more cash coming in, because they take a massive cut, by the way. So it's really big. But other than that, you know, like Medieval 3 and then supported for like 9 years would be fantastic with just extra content being added in. Obviously it needs to be coming out as a full game, but you know, future DLC plans, that stuff is expected, but extra stuff added in, tacked onto it in the form of DLC is always welcome as long as the game is good. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I do apologize if I sound a little stressed. Obviously, I do not want to spend too much time away from my family because I have been sick for a while and I've missed out quite a bit, and I've been antisocial enough as it is. I'll be honest with you. Have a good day, everyone, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. The link to this is in the description below just in case you want to read it. Have a good one. Bye.